What if the next war in Europe is not just something you see on the news, but is happening right outside your window? This morning, Berlin woke up to a nightmare that was never supposed to happen. Germany, after months of official denials, had secretly delivered Taurus missiles to Ukraine. These advanced weapons were not meant to be mere bargaining chips. They were built for devastating precision strikes, and now they had been used to hit deep inside Russian territory. In a single hour, the world changed. Russia's red line was no longer an empty threat. The Taurus missile strike on Russian soil, something Moscow had repeatedly warned against, shattered the thin layer of trust that kept the conflict contained. And within hours, Russia responded with chilling speed and force. Precision strikes fell on Berlin, targeting military infrastructure with a ferocity unseen in the heart of Europe since the last century. The unthinkable had come to pass: a NATO capital under direct military attack. Alarms blared across the city, darkness swept through the streets, and panic gripped the German government. Suddenly, the certainty that Europe could never again be touched by war was gone. This was not just a political miscalculation or a diplomatic standoff. It was the end of an era. The myth of a safe and untouchable Europe has been shattered. The comfort of security guarantees, the stability of alliances, and even the belief in rational deterrence, all of it evaporated in a single, violent morning. If you ignore what happened today, you risk being blindsided by a new reality. Europe's safety net has vanished, and with it, the illusion that chaos and war were things of the past. The choices made in these next moments will decide if the continent descends into chaos, or if a new order can be forged from the ruins. To understand how we arrived at this historic turning point and what it means for every European, let's rewind to the moments that set this chain reaction in motion. Let's step back to the early morning events that triggered this unprecedented escalation. What drives a nation to cross a line it cannot return from? It began with an explosion in the early hours over Belgorod province, a strike unlike any before. The weapon used was not the familiar Storm Shadow, nor an American ATAC-MS. This was the German-made Taurus missile, appearing on the battlefield for the very first time. For months, Berlin publicly denied sending Taurus missiles to Ukraine. But behind closed doors, intense pressure from Washington tipped the balance. Eventually, Germany quietly shipped these precision weapons east, crossing a threshold that Moscow had made crystal clear should never be crossed. The impact was immediate and devastating. The missile leveled crucial Russian logistics sites, warehouses, railway hubs, and transport terminals deep inside Russian territory. This was not just a tactical victory for Ukraine. It was a signal to the world that the rules of the war had changed. The illusion of safe distance from the front was shattered in a single morning. Yet, this move did not come without warning. Russia had, time and again, cautioned the West, especially Berlin, against providing such advanced, long-range strike capabilities to Kiev. Moscow's red lines were restated in every channel, but each time, Berlin dismissed them as little more than empty threats. By choosing to ignore these warnings, Germany believed it could control the risks. But in reality, it had gravely underestimated Russia's resolve and the weight of its own decision. The act of delivering Taurus missiles was not just another arms transfer, it was a turning point, one with consequences that would reach far beyond the battlefield. And as the smoke cleared over Belgorod, Europe held its breath, unaware that the true shock was only just beginning. Within hours, Berlin would discover what it means to become a target, as Russia unleashed a response that would send the entire Western world into crisis. How did one missile plunge Berlin and all of Europe into chaos overnight? The Russian response was as swift as it was shocking. Without a word of warning or boastful rhetoric, Russian forces struck Berlin's most vital military infrastructure, command centers, logistics hubs, and the secret storage sites of long-range missiles. Each strike landed with chilling precision. In minutes, the heart of Germany's defense was crippled. Darkness fell over Berlin. The city's power grid collapsed, communications went silent, and emergency sirens wailed into the night. Government officials scrambled for safety, unable to control the panic sweeping through the city. Ordinary citizens, caught off guard by what had seemed unthinkable just hours before, flooded the streets in confusion and fear. Across Europe, capitals erupted into crisis mode. European Union leaders convened urgent all-night meetings, desperate to craft a unified response. Poland and the Czech Republic demanded the activation of collective defense measures, invoking the gravest security guarantees Europe had ever pledged. Yet, France and Italy hesitated, unwilling to risk direct confrontation with Moscow. The cracks in European unity, once hidden, now yawned open for all to see. Financial markets plummeted before sunrise. Investors scrambled to pull assets, sending shockwaves through the global economy. In Berlin and beyond, protests flared as people took to the streets, furious at their leaders and terrified by the sudden loss of safety. Trust in government, already fraying, unraveled in real time. The message from Moscow was unmistakable. This was not a warning shot. It was the ruthless enforcement of a red line, delivered with icy calm. To misread Russia's resolve, or to dismiss the gravity of this moment, threatens far more than political embarrassment. It risks deeper chaos, economic collapse, and the lives of countless civilians. As the dust settled and Berlin reeled, Europe woke up to a terrifying new reality. The era of assumed safety was over. Now, as governments scramble for answers and alliances teeter, the true consequences of crossing Russia's red line begin to unfold. Is this the day Europe realized its old order is gone for good? In Berlin, the Chancellor's voice trembled as he addressed a nation in shock. His shaky words revealed a deep crisis of leadership, a government unprepared for the sudden, terrifying consequences of its own secret decisions. On the streets, fear turned to anger. Massive crowds flooded city squares and government offices, demanding that Germany withdraw from the Ukraine conflict at once. For the first time in decades, ordinary Germans questioned not just their leaders, but the very alliances they once trusted for safety. Meanwhile, the halls of NATO rang with panic. An emergency meeting, called to forge a united response, instead broke down into shouting and blame-shifting. The alliance that once prided itself on solidarity now looked divided, confused, unsure if collective defense was even possible. Across the Atlantic, the United States issued careful statements, but behind closed doors, officials made it clear there was no appetite to risk full-scale escalation with Russia. America would not sacrifice its own cities for Berlin. The shield Europe counted on began to look paper-thin. Markets reacted instantly. Energy prices soared to record highs. Banks saw the beginnings of runs as anxious citizens rushed to withdraw savings, and a sense of vulnerability swept across the continent. The European economy, already fragile, now seemed on the brink of panic. Russia's response was icy and methodical. Moscow offered no bluster, just a single chilling message. Their warnings were finished. Next would come consequences, delivered without further notice or negotiation. Europe now faces a moment of reckoning. If unity breaks, every country will scramble for its own safety, risking chaos and the outbreak of new conflicts. One miscalculation could plunge the continent deeper into disorder. But in this new and uncertain Europe, what lessons remain for citizens, leaders, and anyone who believed the old world was unshakable? Let's look at what this historic moment truly means for every European, and for the future of global security. What do you do when the rules change overnight? In a single moment, everything Europe believed about its security was overturned, proving that red lines are real, and ignoring them brings consequences that cannot be ignored or reversed. The attack on Berlin exposed a hard truth. Old alliances and treaties only matter if they actually deter real action. No document, no handshake, no speech can protect you when the other side is ready to respond with force. The comfort of the past, the belief in an untouchable Europe, has vanished. Now, civilian preparedness is no longer optional. Psychological readiness, understanding how quickly normal life can shatter, must be matched by practical steps. Families, communities, and entire nations need to know where to go, what to do, and how to communicate if the unimaginable happens again. For leaders, the stakes are even steeper. Political decisions can have irreversible, existential costs, not just for politicians, but for millions of lives and the fate of entire nations. There is no room left for wishful thinking, for delays, or for pretending that warnings are empty threats. Europe faces a moment of reckoning. Security strategies, diplomatic approaches, even the divisions between East and West, all must be honestly re-examined. The world has changed, and so must the way Europe thinks about its future. If leaders and citizens fail to adapt to this new reality, the next crisis could be even worse, costing not only lives and economies, but the very future of Europe itself. So what happens now? The answer is not comfortable, but it's urgent, and it will define everything that comes next. Germany's gamble turned history. Will Europe wake up or sleepwalk into disaster? This is the moment where old certainties collapse. The safe, stable Europe we once knew has vanished overnight. With one secret missile delivery, Germany shattered the illusion that war could be kept at arm's length. A single Taurus missile crossing into Russian territory was all it took to unleash a chain reaction. The Russian response came swiftly and mercilessly, striking Berlin and exposing just how fragile our security truly is. Suddenly, every European city faces the reality that what happened in Germany could repeat anywhere, at any time. The comfort of alliances and treaties has proven to be far less reliable than many believed. Now, leaders and citizens alike must confront this new world head-on. The stakes could not be higher. Not just national pride, but the very foundations of safety, economy, and trust in political leadership are at risk. To ignore these lessons is to risk something even worse, a larger catastrophe that could engulf the entire continent. History has reached a new turning point, and Europe stands at a crossroads. Will we learn from Germany's fateful choice, or repeat the mistakes of the past, pretending that red lines can be crossed without consequence? Time is not on our side. As the dust settles over Berlin, what comes next will depend on the choices made by each one of us.